I'm happy to see you after.
And he just tried to target me in one way or the other. He was telling his followers, कि जिधर मिलेगा उधर पकड़ो उसको ये वो.
Oh, that's so sad.
And
Comedian who's making everyone laugh, but he's sad, or he's crying on the inside, or he's nursing a broken heart on the inside. So how true is it that the person who makes everyone laugh is like the loneliest on the inside?
Hey, hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to see you after. When did I watch your stand-up? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I've been excited since then, and I'm really happy to have you here. You're my very first guest.
Thank
So
you.
we're all of us are really excited.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. Okay, I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy, but this is the first time I'm actually chatting with a person who's a stand-up comic about their life and how it is. And you guys are also from the entertainment industry, but it's so different. And one of the things I remember you talking about during your show is the strange, funny, scary, different reactions you got from your audience. Okay? So let's start. I'm very intrigued. So tell me a little bit about that.
So these reactions typically vary the way we are doing or where we are performing. So when we are performing live, usually people think 10 times before reacting in a hurtful manner or something like that. I mean, thankfully, so far I have not been beaten up when I have performed live. Okay.
Why is this even a discussion? This should not be a discussion. Why should a stand-up comic get beaten up? Okay.
But you never know, because people these days like to get offended, and it is very easy for them to get offended when they are online. Because online they live in this whole world of anonymity. They think that they can get away with anything and everything. But when in real life, they think 10 times before speaking, because they don't want to mess with people without
when they're anonymous and no one knows who they are, that they can be mean or whatever.
Exactly, that's how it is. So one of the scarier incidents that has happened is that once some members of a political party, they got angry over something, and there's this leader who is trying to be a leader. So he did an Instagram live, and he just tried to target me in one way or the other. He was telling his followers कि जिधर मिलेगा उधर पकड़ो उसको ये वो.
But that's so scary.
And yeah, it was scary because what followed after that was that whole night I was getting calls from members of this particular political party. Thankfully, there were a lot of people who had gone through something similar, and they were there to guide me. They said that you better lay low for a week and then things will get sorted. I mean, he said that you can take them head on. But I said I would much rather focus on writing my content or developing new content or just my mental peace, more importantly. So that's why. But then that situation got sorted, thankfully. But every once in a while, he tries to reach me. He's been trying to do that for like past 2 to 3 years. So it gets scary every once in a while, but then it gets less scarier as we go along. So,
but that's really, I don't know, it's really like sad that a stand-up comic has to face all this, but then...
Yeah, because it puts a lot of restrictions on us. Because I want to talk about a lot of things, and people don't realize that it's just a joke. Okay, I mean, when we were kids, तो हाथी के चींटी का joke we used to keep telling those jokes. And वो सही में हाथी को चींटी को अपना बिकनी नहीं देने वाला. But it's a joke and it's not real. It's not meant to offend someone. And when we put out something online, we have done those jokes at least 100, 200 times in front of any audience. And since we have done this 200 times, no one has got offended. Only then we go and put it out online. So then you don't realize that people will get offended. So the purpose is किसी को बुरा नहीं तकलीफ नहीं देना रहता. It just ends up happening and people react in strong ways. You meant it this way, that way. They interpret in their own sweet way, and then they get angry at us because we are easy targets for them. Yeah.
Like one of the things you mentioned was like a really sweet incident where I think someone wanted you to come and surprise their mother. Because so do you also have like people reacting in a happy way, saying you made our day better, and my mom loves you, this one loves you, I love you. Do you get all of that?
No, that we get quite a lot, because I remember there was a video that I had done. It was about school and school results, class 12th results and all those things. And I think the video didn't do that well as I was expecting. It did well, but it didn't do that well. So I was a little upset about it. But I clearly remember that before the 10th board exams, 3 or 4 students actually messaged me. They said that we watched your video and pura stress chale gaya and we were so happy. We were going through a lot of stress. इतना तकलीफ. And I said I can understand because I never studied unless and until the exams such as वो एकदम सामने आता था ना उसके पहले I didn't study at all. So I know that kind of stress that you are going through. So I said happy to make your life better. And the other thing that you told me was that when I was a surprise gift for someone's mother's birthday party, that was not a great memory for me because that mother didn't really know me. She just loved stand-up, and her daughters thought that they will put a middle-aged man in front of her, and they'll be like, "This is the stand-up comedian." She's like, "Who is this guy?" I'm like, yeah, I could see that in your eyes, but I like to play along, so yeah, it was fun.
No, but that's fine. Even if she didn't know you, I'm sure she did by the end of the evening.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And like that's how when you're up and coming, or once before you become well known like you are now, that's how it is. So we were like all chatting before you came along, and these guys have some interesting questions for you.
Okay.
Like they want to know stuff like. Is it true that if you're a funny guy, you get female attention more easily? Is that true?
I have been funny guy for most of my life, but that female attention part has not been true. Female attention for funny guys is different. They just like to laugh with them. They're like, "Oh, you're so funny, you're so cute." But yeah, that's my boyfriend, so I'm going with it. So that's how it works for funny guys. So if anyone is thinking of, if anyone thinks that by being funny you're going to get girls, think 10 times. And you might as well pick up a guitar or some other instrument that will work better, or try rock music or something else. But yeah, that's one way a lot of men try to get their attention. But yeah, one thing that stand-up comedy gives you is that when you get on stage, it gives you a lot of confidence. And more importantly, no matter what field you are going in, you need to be in love with yourself first. And the moment you start doing that, when you're in love with yourself, when you're in love with your art, that's when you females alone, anyone will start liking you. Because if you're not in love with your art, if you're not putting your 100%, then people look, yeah, that's okay. Talking about going on stage, I really think that going on stage with the spotlight on you and some hundreds or thousands of people sitting in the dark and all waiting for you to make them laugh is one of the toughest things you can do. So how do you deal, like most people, if you ask them what's your biggest fear, it will be like facing an audience, right? So how do you deal with that on a regular basis? And how do you do it to an even tougher thing, that not just interact with strangers in the dark, but also make them laugh? Like how do you do it? See, answer to this, how is different stages, you have different ways of dealing with it. So, for example, when I started, I had to initially for my first few open mics or something, they were usually at a pub or a club or something. So, just to gather that courage, I used to have a lot of beer or alcohol or something before I go on stage. Okay. So that was my way of dealing with that fear or that nervousness in the beginning. But then once I went to Canvas Laugh Club, and I don't think that was possible at that time, and I had to go on stage just like that. And the gig went equally well. In fact, it was not a gig, it was an open mic, and I performed with great confidence. And I was happy about it. And that was the day I decided that before going on stage, I'm not going to be drinking, because this is an art form which I want to pursue very seriously. And if I have to pursue it seriously, then I have to deal with my own fears internally and not with the help of something external. So that's when I decided. And as you progress, you realize that fear, for some reason, it just goes somewhere. Okay. And then it becomes a part of your life. It becomes your job. And once it becomes your job, you're not afraid of going to your office and talking to your colleagues on a day-to-day basis. And that's it. And it's more difficult for stand-up comedians because I'll tell you why. Because there's a very basic rule of public speaking is that if you have to talk to people, you just imagine them naked.
Yeah,
And when your audience isn't dark, you can't imagine that well. So that's a big challenge. But yeah, if you learn to deal with it in your own way over a period of time. And once you start getting that authority, once you start being friendly with those people and start being more authentic as a person on stage, then I think people enjoy. Even if people don't laugh after a point of time, you're like, yeah, okay, I knew you guys are not going to laugh that much. So I'll try my best, but it's up to you whether you want to laugh or not. So हो जाता है धीरे धीरे.
Yeah, you're making it seem much easier than what it is, but
Well, जैसे कोई solution नहीं है. There is no medicine उस चीज का कि मेरे को डर कैसे भगाऊंगा. It's very simple because it's always between your eyes. So you have to find out how you can deal with it. One thing has worked for me is that whenever I go on stage, I practice a lot before going on stage.
So that makes
I practice a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, because that way my content is sorted. I know that what is going to come after this joke, what is going to happen after this joke. So that gives me a sense of comfort before going on stage, and it leaves a lot of space for me to deal with something unexpected. So all that impromptu thoughts वगैरह वहीं से आता है. When you're well prepared, it works. So मेरे लिए preparation works. If I'm not prepared at all, the gig is not going to go great. I am not that kind of a person who can go on stage naturally and just make people laugh. So I going with a lot of preparation. That works for me.
So earlier you mentioned something about an open mic. So there's a lot of prep that goes in before you actually go on stage. It's not all fun and games. कि आप लोग गए 4 जोक मारा लोग हंसे आ गए. So what is the preparation that goes in before a stand-up comic actually goes on stage? Like I am sure there's a lot of pre-work that goes in, like it does for an actor. So what is it like for you guys?
So first of all, you need jokes. So the first and foremost, the most important thing is that you need to write jokes. So even I still go to a lot of open mics because that's how you keep testing your new content. But before that, you need to have content.
So sorry to interrupt you. For people who don't know, what is an open mic?
Open mic is basically first step for any artist to perform. So irrespective of whether you're a musician or you're a comedian or you're a poet or something, there are different types of open mics that happen across cities. And if you want to start any particular art form, you can register at any of those open mics. So specifically for a comedy open mic, you get around 4 minutes to perform, 4 minutes or 5 minutes, and you have to write jokes worth 4 or 5 minutes. You go on stage and you test those jokes. I started my comedy from an open mic also, just like most other comedians. And that's where it's open to all. So anyone can go and perform. Even if you're a singer, if it's a common open mic, you can sing also. But for comedy open mic, very specifically, there are 4 minutes time which is allotted. You go on stage, you perform. If you keep doing well, they'll keep calling you again. And then you rise from an open mic to an open spot where you get a longer period of time. If you do well at that consistently, then they let you host some of those open mics because they realize that you are really good at that. And then you start having your own shows and things like that. Yeah.
Wow. So there is a lot of prep that goes in before one actually.
A lot of prep. You have to write jokes. You have to test those jokes in front of your family first. Then you go and test them at open mics. And when those jokes do consistently well at open mics, then they become a part of your regular set. Then you go and perform in front of a live audience as your own show, or you take that set to any of the corporate shows or other public events or something like that. So you have to write because writing is the most important thing. People who are doing really well in today's world, they are the ones who write a lot of content. Things like delivery and everything else, your stage presence, that refines or evolves over a period of time. But before that, you just have to sit and write because without jokes, you are nothing. It's just one person talking. So if you're going on stage and just doing crowd work or something like that, it's okay. But it's not actually respecting the art form. No disrespect to people who are doing that. But if it's an art form which involves कि joke लिखना है, तो बिना joke के क्यों stage पे जाना है? That's the most important thing. बैंक में जाओगे तो पैसा ही एक्सपेक्ट करोगे ना.
वो तो है.
वो बैंक में जाके उससे बात करेगा तो नहीं चलेगा. You won't be happy.
So one of the things I'm most excited about is that you're a Marathi stand-up comic, because I am Maharashtrian, as you also know. And Marathi literature, Marathi cinema, Marathi theatre, Marathi books is we are culturally very, very rich. So it's always been there. But how did Marathi, like, and there are obviously Marathi funny movies and things like that, but how did Marathi stand-up comedy sort of come about? And then how did you kind of enter this profession? Was it your bachpan ka sapna, or was it more like a accidental thing, or like how was it?
So I think I have to give credit to Marathi literature quite a lot, obviously, because since I was a kid, I remember I lived in Indore. So for me, Marathi was not a day-to-day language that I used to speak outside of my household. Though Indore has a lot of Marathi people, but most of the people over there speak Hindi. And even the Maharashtrians living there have been living for generations. So even their kids, they speak Hindi quite a lot. So to make sure that I stay in touch with Marathi, whenever my grandmother, she used to visit, she used to give me a lot of cassettes. She used to give me Marathi books. So Pula Deshpande, Vapu Kale, and even Shirish Kanekar, all those cassettes, books, she used to get them for me, and she used to gift them to me. And I loved listening to that. Even Varat Nigale London La, I used to listen to that quite a lot. And most of us, I mean, whoever is now a performer on stage, even if they are a theatre artist or something, at some point of time, they have performed Varat Nigale Vandala as a kid, be it a family Ganpati function or a society Ganpati function. It was a legend. And I never got a chance to do that in Indore. So always वो भूख था कि भाई इधर आके I have to do something. So as a kid, I used to do that quite a lot. And so for me, my connection with humor was primarily through Marathi literature or Marathi comedy in general. And no other form of literature has interested me as much as comedy has been. So even as a kid, I loved that. I loved telling jokes to people. But ऐसा सोचा नहीं था कि I'll become a stand-up comedian. बड़ा होके. And then slowly and steadily, I used to get on stage for anchoring events in school or in college. And even in my first job, I made friends with a lot of people in HR, and I said, I want to host those events and this and that. And I always had a funny angle while I was hosting. But I still never thought of becoming a stand-up comedian. Then eventually I moved to Pune, and one of my very close friends, Pushkar Bendre, and he's right now, I think, doing international tours and all. So he was performing at an open mic in Pune, and he invited me. He said, "यार तू आजा, अभी भी पुणे शिफ्ट हुआ है, तो आजा मुझे देखने के लिए." So I said, "Yeah, I'll go." And Mara and I have been good friends for quite some time. We started our first job together, so I was excited. I just went there, and I was sitting and I was drinking, and I got excited. And I'm like, only Mandar is doing well, and everyone is doing really bad. So I think I have a chance. I'm better. Yeah, I am better than these guys at least. So I asked the host, who was Puneet Pania. He's another comedian. And I asked him, चलता है comedy. Yeah, and he was very kind. He said, हाँ वो हो जाता है ना, बीच बीच में किसी को जोश आ जाता है, तो तुम भी करो. And then he gave me 4 minutes, and it was some sort of a competition. And Mandar was first, and I ended up being second there. And I went without any preparation. Obviously, I had a couple of jokes in my mind, but I went there without any preparation. The audience was kind, and it was amazing. But that was the moment that I realized कि भाई अब lifelong ये करना ही है. And how old were you that time? Like, I think it was some 7 years back. Okay. So recent. Yeah. So is that? I mean, I look way too older now, but I look way younger back then. No, like 15 or like No, not 15 and all. Not 15 and all. Yeah. So so that's how it started. So one more thing I wanted to ask you. Now we've got like India has so many different states, and we've got dialects and sub-dialects and different literature, and there's so many variations within the country. So how is a Marathi stand-up? Like, what do you find the differentiation in the sense of humor, or what the audience likes as compared to Hindi and as compared to, let's say, English stand-up? Yeah. So I think Marathi stand-up, I have realized one difference is that Marathi people, they prefer quick quips. I mean, they like these small jokes, small tags very, very much. Really? Yeah. I mean, you can't just give them a premise which is like 2 minutes long and expect them to give a big laughter after that. Okay. They want a lot of tags. I mean, while you're working with them, and they want it to be more of a conversation than you just going on stage and talking about it. That's the difference that I primarily see. Also, there is another thing that at this point of time, still Marathi comedy is in its nascent stage.
Yes.
So I think people laugh at a lot of low-hanging jokes, which will stop over a period of time as Marathi comedy evolves.
Okay.
That's why a lot of comics or Marathi comics, they get away doing a lot of substandard sets or substandard jokes. Yeah, that is something that I have seen, and it works for them because the competition is very less at this point of time. But as the scene grows, as the audience maturity increases, as the audience are exposed more to either Hindi comedy or English comedy, which is way more evolved, increase. So I keep telling a lot of aspiring Marathi comedians also, you should go and test yourselves even at Hindi open mics, or even start trying to perform in English. You can't let language be a barrier for your humor. You can't say that I can make people laugh only in Marathi. Or I can make people laugh only in Hindi. In fact, one of my favorite comedians is a very, very good friend of mine, Mandar. The reason being that he also started from Hindi comedy. I also started from Hindi comedy. And then the moment we started doing Marathi comedy, it was not a barrier for us because it helps us. That stage experience, it always helps us. So I go on stage, I can make people laugh in Hindi. That's also half an hour worth of experience for me. So I take that experience to my Marathi show, and then I can make them laugh better with an improved and enhanced delivery. So ultimately, everyone is there to laugh. You need to keep that in mind. But for Maharashtrians, there are more cultural nuances that I can bring in from my own life.
Own personal experience.
Like for example, माझे वडील जोडतात. आता जोडतात ये word मराठी में ही it is there.
You get what it means.
You get it. Or there are some things which are typically about our functions or something. घरच्या फंक्शनला बटाट्याची भाजी खातो आपण. पुणेरी पाट्या. Those things people might not understand. For example, I have a joke where I say की मी एकाच्या गेट समोर गेलेलो, गाडी लावली, and उसने बाहर आया, गाड़ी का टायर फ्लैट था. No, for a Hindi person, they think, हाँ ठीक है, गाड़ी का हवा निकाला, उसमें क्या?
सबको छुरे चल जाएंगे.
Exactly. Yeah. So if I tell someone that मी पुण्यात गेट समोर गाडी लावली आणि बाहेर गाडीची हवा काढली, so people are excited. Okay, ये पुणे में होता है, and it's a very quirky thing about Pune. So those cultural nuances also you have to keep in mind. And you have to be very careful that you are not making fun of their cities. Even though we have to give 10,000 disclaimers before that.
But you can make fun of a city. Our city is not owned by anybody.
Exactly. But people love to get offended. Maharashtrians love to get offended a little more than the Hindi speaking people.
That sounds very...
They love to. They love to get a little more offended. I'm not saying much. They love to get a little more offended. And Maharashtrians are really good at taking offense also.
So it's a tricky slope for you. Tricky like wall.
You have to be very careful.
That you're navigating. So one more general question. Like, why don't I see that many female comedians? What is the...
That's definitely not the case. They're amazing. There are a lot of amazing female comedians who have also inspired me. For example, when I won my first open mic, the person who was hosting was Aditi Mittal. And she's hilarious. She's also sorted. When you talk to her as a person also, she gives you a lot of insights, not just about the field, but also about a lot of other things. And at the beginning of the career, I had a chance to interact with her. So she told me a lot of things which have helped me. She said, get on stage every day, write jokes every day. All those things are there. But the two main reasons that I have personally observed is that most of the audience is male-dominated audience, especially at open mics and all those things. When you go for a show, there are a lot of female audience over there. But since there are different subjects that are being talked about, there are topics that more women can relate to, vis-a-vis a man can relate to those topics. So that's where I see it as one challenge. And another thing is that the work environment has to be really conducive. As you mentioned, I think when we were talking, a lot of chefs are male.
Yeah.
And the reality is that field is very difficult. I mean, you have to stay out late in the evening. So unless we create that sort of conducive environment that women can step out and work there safely, or stay late for any of the open mics, or go home after the shows very safely, it is going to continue. I mean, वो चीज बदलना है, तो we have to make sure that we are being more supportive. I mean, the audience has to be more supportive, because most of the time audience just write off कि यार लड़कियां तो 2-3 टॉपिक के बारे में बात करती है, बट आई हैव सीन men also talking about those 2-3 topics only. We did one Marathi open mic. दूर दूर से लोग आए थे परफॉर्म करने के लिए, and 8 out of 10 people did masturbation jokes.
What?
Oh, yeah, 8 out of 10 men are doing masturbation jokes, and at the end I asked boss, तुम दूसरा कुछ करते हो कि नहीं करते हो खाली टाइम में, कि यही करते हो? And then that same audience, if a woman is cracking jokes, they'll say, हाँ ये तो period की बातें में ही बात करते रहते हैं.
Yeah.
So the reality is कि थोड़ा हमें भी थोड़ा lenient रहना चाहिए कुछ चीजों में, सभी comedians के लिए. मैं भी वीडियो डालता हूँ, I keep getting हंसना था क्या. तो रियल शो में आके देखना लोग हंस रहे, इसीलिए तो मैं जोक डाल रहा हूँ. I'm not an idiot that I want to put out a joke where people are not laughing. So in general, that's the thing.
Now, do you also get that thing that most creative people get? Like people see a singer at an airport and they'll be like, "Chalo, गाना गा दो." So people do they meet you and say?
वो इतनी बार हुआ है. Like I remember मैं ठाणे में था and I was meeting a cousin of mine and I didn't know a lot of people there तभी. तो वो बोला हाँ अभी meeting my friends and तू भी आ जा. Okay, everyone will drink, everyone will talk. And then he's introducing, he's like, ये मेरा cousin है, ये stand-up comedy करता है. And there was this one girl who said, हाँ तो आज तुम्हारा भी हो जाए. हो जाए मतलब क्या, मैं तेरे लिए जोक सुनाने थोड़ी ना आया तो पर्सन. And they had to drink with my cousin. तुम्हारा भी हो जाए मतलब क्या लगा मैं तुमको ऐसे टेबल पे खड़ा होकर जोक सुना? That's not how it works.
Yeah, so, and I think people need to understand that though it looks fun, it's a job. Like you can't how you can't go and ask a doctor at a party that अच्छा ठीक है, please give me advice on my medical problem. You cannot ask someone to perform their profession in a social setting.
Exactly, because doctors also get upset when you ask them for free advice. So obviously it's their profession. Clinic पे आओ पूछना यार, सही है.
They hate it. So likewise, you can't ask a lawyer for advice in a party, right? You can't ask just because someone's a stand-up comic or a singer, you can't say, अच्छा ठीक है, चलो start singing or start.
Even though I personally think that doctors' work is way more important. Okay, I personally think, because I've performed for a lot of doctors and I tell them, बस तुम जो कर रहे हो real काम है, हम joke सुना रहे हैं. And I get that it's supposed to be light-hearted, but at the end of the day, for me, it's a profession. And where I put in my hard work, I write those jokes, I practice those jokes all by myself. I go bomb at open mics just to realize कि ये नहीं चल रहा है, वो नहीं चल रहा है. So at the end of the day, for me, one joke, for me, it's really precious. Okay, for everyone else, they think ये एक joke लिखा है, उसमें क्या है इतना? For me, that joke is really important. I'll kill someone for writing like 100 more jokes like that. And so, moment if someone steals a joke, also that's when we feel bad too. So इसीलिए वो लोगों को समझना चाहिए कि ऐसा randomly आके मेरे को जोक सुनाएगा वैसा नहीं है.
Recently there's been this trend. I saw 2 podcasts of both well-known Indian comics where they've spoken about serious issues like let's say men's mental health or something else. So do you find that lately there is this trend, or you're able to talk about a serious issue in a light-hearted manner, or like there's still time before we get there, before people stop taking offense? Like, do you think you can talk about, let's say, mental health in a show and maybe impart some valuable advice? Are you able to do that? Do you think we've reached that stage?
Mental health is since you brought that topic on mental health, it's something that I personally believe it should be talked about. But I personally believe that instead of listening to stand-up comics or something like that, you should only listen to professionals in that space. It's not a topic that stand-up comedians should talk about.
No, I didn't mean that.
I personally think, that's just an example. Because I think that if you're talking about a serious topic, in my opinion, personally, there should be at least one person who is qualified to talk about that topic. So it's always better if it's a combination of a stand-up comedian and someone who has been an expert in that field, and then there might be someone who comes with a neutral view.
There's another thing I wanted to ask you. Now, I'm quite fond of dark humor, okay?
Yeah.
Dark humor meaning like I can look at cartoons or look at, there are a lot of, I think the Family Guy or whatever.
Family Guy, yeah, Family Guy.
Yeah. So there are a lot of, comedians also and cartoons also. We can talk about stuff right from death to divorce to mental health to maybe someone who's physically challenged. They take everything. They can make fun of anything, okay? And I find it funny, even though I've been through, like, I've had a broken hand, a relationship ups and downs. I can laugh at anything.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you that, do you, in your personal life, are you the kind of person who can look at even like a really serious situation and be like, "Arey yaar, ye bhi theek hai, iska bhi mazak uda lete hain," or are you that's something that I'll not touch because my parents will kill me, or whatever the reason?
वैसा नहीं होता, इधर तो हमेशा आता रहता है, सोचता तो रहता हूँ.
So you can find humor in everything.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
But we have to keep that filter. कि भाई ये क्या सोच रहा है, ठीक है. But no, it's fun. I mean, when it's humor, तो वो सब जगह से आता है. It comes from everywhere, and especially dark humor, it comes from strangest of the places.
Yeah.
But you have to be very careful. Like
Keeping your mouth shut, maybe.
Exactly, दिमाग में पूरा टाइम जोक चालू रहता है. So when you are at a funeral, you can't think of a joke and start laughing.
Because it'll
You
not
have
be.
to control yourself quite a lot at that point of time. So वो self control उधर रखना पड़ता है. But you should talk about it, especially family guy में ना. Since you brought that up, even I saw one of Seth MacFarlane's interview, and he clearly said, we get away with a lot of things because it's an animated series.
Yes.
We wouldn't get away with it if real people were cracking those jokes.
Yeah, he's borderline.
Exactly.
He's talking about, disturbing family relations, and he's talking about everything.
He's crossed borderline.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. But dark humor is amazing because dark humor can make you laugh in a situation which is very difficult. I mean, there's a famous author called Prahlad Keshavatre, and he said that situation at that time is depressing, it's disturbing, it's problematic, it's difficult. But over a period of time, it just ends up being a situation, which is a memory. And in fact, you learn so much from that dark situation that if you start laughing at it, you become more evolved as a person. And that's how it is. So you should laugh at these situations. You keep telling yourself कि नहीं भाई ये मर गया तो मैं क्या उसमें ठीक है ना यार, I can't laugh about it. क्या होता है यार? In fact, मेरी life में इतना problems होता रहता है. I start laughing about them. That's how I deal with it. Life is very difficult to get through.
Yeah. If you look at life funny, it's easier to deal with. So there's this conception, Pushkar, from like classic comedians like Charlie Chaplin and a little bit from Raj Kapoor and Mera Naam Jo Hai. There's this laughing comedian who's making everyone laugh, but he's sad or he's crying on the inside or he's nursing a broken heart on the inside. So how true is it that the person who makes everyone laugh is like the loneliest on the inside? Or what do you have to say about it?
It depends. एक तो as a human being, how you are सबसे पहला. If you are not happy as a human being, no matter what profession you will be in, or no matter how successful you are not going to. You are going to come out as a lonely person. But especially in comedy, as you start becoming more successful, when you go on tours or when you go perform a corporate event somewhere, let's say in Assam or somewhere, it's a beautiful place that you're performing in, but you're all by yourself. Okay, so it completely depends on how the show goes. फिर उसके ऊपर, so इसलिए it has a lot of effect. But more importantly, as you said, कि वो तो होता ही है, because comedians in general, as kids, they don't have many friends. Okay, so loneliness बचपन से ही रहता है. People like to laugh with them, but people really don't take them seriously. So वो कई बार उसकी वजह से problem होता है. That's why people have a lot of broken heart with them. Like I'll tell you one fun incident. It once happened. There was a friend in college, and I just told her, "What are you doing tomorrow evening?" And she just said, I said, "Okay, let's go out. Let's have a coffee or something like that." Next day, she didn't even realize. She thought that I was joking. I said, "I really asked you out. I was not joking about it." So those sort of things happen quite a lot with comedians. And even as friends will laugh at your jokes. But they'll be like, हाँ, इसको इतना seriously नहीं लेना चाहिए. So, but नहीं, comedians at core are very, very serious people. देखा है कई सारे comedians के साथ the level of intellectual discussions that I had with them, I haven't had with a lot of people. And मजा भी आता है उसकी वजह से, but हाँ थोड़ा सा है seriousness, depression, loneliness ये रहता है.
थोड़ा सा Chandler Bing है. थोड़ा सा Chandler Bing है.
Because देखा है ना कई सारे comedians, even
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams' suicide was like a big shock to even
everybody.
हाँ, तब तो मैं stand-up comedy चालू भी नहीं किया था, and I was like यार इतना बुरा लगा. I literally cried that day. I don't think I cried after any comedian or a person died. That day I cried.
Yeah.
Because वो नहीं समझते नहीं है लोग उनको.
Yeah, it was a very like upsetting thing for everyone.
तो इनका लाइफ में तो सब अच्छा ही चल रहा होगा because
You assume
yeah.
because he's always happy and joking, so
Yeah.
you assume everything is fine.
exactly yeah.
So one last question for you. Now there's so many people, like everyone's looking at content creation nowadays. It's like the new
Yeah.
thing. Okay?
Yeah.
So what advice do you have and I think content creation or being a stand-up comic or being an actor, it's all about holding the audience's attention and interest. So as someone who's able to successfully do that, what advice do you have for up and coming content creator? How do you engage your audience? How do you keep their attention?
See, more importantly, rather than thinking about engaging the audience, do what you really want to do or do what you really like to do. So if you start doing that, then you can do it for a longer period of time. If you start playing only to your audience, then you end up doing things where you are not actually authentic. Okay, for example, you are doing this podcast because you like to do, you want to talk about certain things, you want to meet new people, you want to talk to those artists. And that's why you are enjoying while you are doing this.
Yes.
So the moment you think, हाँ नहीं मैं clickbait है, आजकल ये चल रहा है, so I'll start doing that. Then over a period of time you realize कि ये तो मेरे को करना ही नहीं था. And I'm saying that if you are entering a field where you really are passionate about it, whether it's content creation or comedy or anything else, then don't sacrifice with your content. Okay, अगर वही करना है, मन मार के काम करना है, you might as well do a job. तो अगर तुमको मन नहीं मारना है, you want to do what you want to do, then your content should be that. And the moment you realize कि यही करते रहोगे ना, you will find your niche, you will get that success out of somewhere. And more importantly, content creation. And a lot of kids, I'm really worried about it because they think that this is a shortcut to success. But unless and until there's some sort of an art inward, you can't do it for the rest of your life. Or you look at it in a purely commercial angle. कि हाँ मैं ये करूँगा फिर उसके कुछ साल बाद I'll do something else, इसमें पैसा निकाल के I'll do something else. वो दिमाग में होगा तो then without any
art or
talent. Yeah. Okay. Because if you really have to admire people like Tanmay Bhat or something, because Tanmay Bhat, he knows what is going to be the next big thing. So abhi wo suddenly you will see him talking about AI because he knows he's not just focused on one एक roast करके खत्म हो गया. So if you are thinking, so think about how he has done it and then you enter a field like that.
Okay.
So
yeah. So don't do it just because you're looking at easy success, because there's no easy success anywhere. Yeah. Basically follow your passion, and if that will make it possible for you to engage with the audience.
Exactly. पूरा hard work मेहनत तो as I said, Vipul Goyal का एक show था and someone asked him कि मेरे को comedian बनना है तो मैं कैसे बनूं? तो he said यहाँ जाओ वो open micers जो है उनसे बात करो, वो बताएंगे कैसे होता है क्या होता है. तो बोलता है मराना तो पड़ेगा तुमको, मेहनत तो करना पड़ेगा, उसके बिना नहीं होने वाला. So there is no shortcut no matter what field it is, and if you get it very quickly, then the chances of that going away is also much faster. So once you get that success, sustaining that is very difficult. 2 वीडियो चल गया, उसके बाद बाकी भी तो चलाना है, नहीं तो एक वीडियो पे 4 मिलियन व्यूज आए, दूसरे पे 200 व्यूज आए, तो वो डील करते आना चाहिए उसके साथ. It's okay, होता है.
And and also being able to deal with the fluctuations of your career.
So when you are young, you can't do that. As you get older, life से जितना ज़्यादा मार खाता है, so you realize कि हाँ भाई अभी तो हो जाएगा धीरे-धीरे.
Alright.
You must have seen that.
Yeah, I have seen that, and that's why I think it's good to be as I can't say I managed to remain unaffected, but it's good to remain slightly detached with your ups and downs, especially when I've seen in my career. And secondly, I'm someone who can take things like a joke also. Like I mentioned, I don't know whether dark humor applies, but I can laugh at stuff. I can be like, okay, big deal, kal dekha jayega. I can do that. So I think it kind of sort of helps me it's a coping mechanism for me. So I think it helps me. And so thank you for being here, Pushkar.
Thanks for
it was very nice.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing your shows soon.
Yeah, same here. Look forward to seeing you at my shows. Yeah.
Thank you.